Hello, this is Ed Spicer, and this is www.spicyreads.org. Sit back for the next 15 minutes and enjoy Christopher Paul Curtis. We spoke at the Michigan Reading Conference on Mackinac Island. Enjoy.
Watson's Go to Birmingham came out many years ago and was a Newbery Honor book. What has changed since that book came out and today in your world of writing?
20 years have gone by, and there really aren't a lot of changes that have taken place. I think there's still a paucity of authors that are female, that are minority, Hispanic, African American. You take your choice. I think one of the things that is incumbent upon those of us who are writers today is to interest young people into becoming writers, into telling the stories. Because we've harped on it for years. Publishers have actually worked on trying to do it. But one of the things is we need to instill in young minority students the importance of reading and writing. We have to get them more involved in that, because it's a no-brainer, really. Because if you can do those two things well, if you can read well, if you can write well, the world opens up to you and you can do anything. And we will have authors who will take over and surpass anything that Christopher Curtis or Jacqueline Woodson or Walter Dean Myers, any of us have done. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that next generation to come and to take the torch and run with it, and to do better than we did, work harder than we did.
Yeah.
And they can do it if they're influenced enough and inspired enough to do it.
Right. There are so very few people that are writing that are black that are writing, or that are Latino that are writing, or that are native that are writing, and we need to boost those numbers up. And one of the ways to boost those numbers up, in my mind, is by getting more readers. And if you want to get more readers, one real logical place in my mind is white readers. So could you hold up the Watson's Go to Birmingham, and could you tell my white students at my white high school what's in that book for them?
Well, I would tell your white students at your white high school the same thing I would tell a black student in Flint.
Absolutely.
The fact is that this book is dealing with American problems and with Americans, and that's what we are. Everybody who's here is aspiring to become part of this country. Everybody who's doing that, we're Americans at heart, and we're all the same. And as I get older and older, one of the things that I found out is we are very much the same. And one of the things that we have to break down is the comfort we have in the things that we choose to read or to watch. Oftentimes people will say, that's not about me, I don't want to read it, I don't want to do it. And that becomes a real problem, because you're cutting yourself off from so much that's going on in the world.
Right. I think a lot of my readers should know just how hysterically funny that book is.
Well, I hope they find it funny.
And it's telling such a serious story about the Birmingham bombing.
Right. What I try to do in the story is to approach it the way someone who is a young person approaches things. And young people have a tremendous resilience, and they will not let something hold them down. And I think that's what the book is about, the resilience of Kenny, and how he does not let this horrible thing that happens, that he witnesses, it doesn't destroy him. And that's one of the things that I'm thinking that readers of every race can get from this book, and can get from reading books by other people. You have to come out of your comfort zone and read other things.
I know that when you look at your first work, there's always that sense that I'm never done, and that I could have gone back and changed things, even in, the Watson's Go to Birmingham. So when you approached But Not Buddy, how are you trying to grow?
One of the things I discovered early on was people would say to me, you did so well with the Watson's Go to Birmingham, how are you going to improve on it with But Not Buddy? I tried to go back to the exact same space that I was before, just somebody who was writing a story. I wasn't really thinking about improvement or growth as a writer. Hopefully that would come from the practice of writing that I was doing, from doing the writing. So that's what there was no grand scheme to try to get better. It was just try to tell the story. And as I tell young people this all the time, as with anything, the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. The more you're dedicated to it, you'll put more things into it, and you'll grow in ways that you don't even know. And hopefully that's what's happened with me. I hope that you said with my first book, I know you can go back and want to change things. Every book I want to go back and change things. That's one of the dilemmas of being an author. The book is never done.
Right.
You and your editor, that's one of the hardest decisions you have to make, and finally say, that's it.
That's it.
Let's put this baby to bed, because you can't really do much more. You could change the book forever and ever. It would never be published. So,
and you do change your books for a long time before you come to that point where you say it's not done. Do you enjoy the revision process?
I'm asked what is my least favorite part of writing, and this is all relative. I love every part of writing, but I think one of the most challenging parts is the revision process, because you're getting another point of view from an editor, from several different editors, and you're trying to conform your story to that. And that's why it's so important to have a lot of respect for your editor. Your editor has to be somebody that you can trust and somebody that you can respect. And I've been very lucky in the editors that I've had. It's a matter of trust. When they tell me something, I look at it very seriously, and I can understand that there's a problem somewhere. I might not agree with everything they say, but I think the fact that I can go back and look at it and have to give it a second thought. Because one of the things that happens when you're writing something as long as a novel, you lose perspective after a while. You're completely immersed in this world of these people that you're writing about, and it's hard to see the big picture. And that's why editors and other readers who can give you feedback are very valuable and very important.
Yeah. And I heard you say in your speech just a few moments ago about your mother and how your mother has factored into most of the books that you've done. My feeling is that another thing that has factored into many of your books is a love of history.
True, I do. And that, once again, is tied to my mother, because my mother was a great reader. She constantly was giving me books to read, and a lot of them were about historical events. She was trying to make me an educated person. And I picked up on that love of history. And what's more fun than taking an event that you've read about and placing somebody in it and getting a different spin on it? Looking at it,
Elijah of
Buxton, which takes place in Buxton, Ontario.
I've been there. I have pictures of the museum there and the streets there.
Very interesting place to go to. And I always had wanted to do something about slavery. And going to Canada was finally the thing that gave me the in, because I thought it would be very difficult to write about something from the perspective of a slave. And by writing from the voice of a first generation who was born out of slavery, I could have many of the sicknesses of slavery in the story, but the narrator was not completely poisoned by it. So, yeah, I have a real love of history. I love looking at things, and I know that history, there are many, many different ways to look at any singular event. Everybody's going to look at it differently.
Yeah, I like the fact that you focus on history that tends to get ignored in schools. That's still very important and essential to our development as a country. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are those three books different from The Mighty Miss Malone?
Well, the main difference, I suppose, if you were on a very superficial level, is the fact that Mighty Miss Malone is narrated by a girl.
Yes.
It's my first attempt to write from the voice of a female protagonist.
Was that harder or easier?
Well, once again, one of the things that I do when I first set out, I say to myself, okay, everything seems hard, but it's not. And I said writing from a girl might be different, but I thought, no, it's a young woman telling a story. I get the voice. It's almost as if the person's talking to me. I don't listen to a young woman any differently than I do to a young man, so I just listened to the voice of Deza, and I finally felt like Deza was telling me the story. So, no, it really wasn't hard. Once I got over my own apprehension about doing it, then I realized it was pretty much the same thing.
In your speech today, you also read a letter that you keep near and dear to your heart, which was just so much BS that it was funny, and I loved it. I have a letter here from a student that is a real letter. Dear Christopher Paul Curtis, I learned to read with your books. I loved your book so much. I have a cat. The cat's name is... no.
I didn't know how to read before I read your book.
The connection I have to Bud Not Buddy for me is how Bud has so many hardships and his mother is gone. I've had plenty of hardships in my life. This is an 11-year-old. and in my life and my mom's. I don't see a lot. Also, Bud and I also jump to conclusions all the time. Like, Bud thought just by seeing a flyer that Herman E. Calloway was his father. Also, how Bud runs away sometimes. I want to run away too.
No. Yeah, well, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for some connection with the reader,
Yeah.
for them to be able to say, I can understand that, I can feel that. And I think that that's the difference between just reading a book and feeling a book. And that's what you as an author, you want. You want people to not only read it, but you want them to feel it. You want to say there's some connection there. And what we were talking about earlier about speaking to a white student as opposed to an African American or Hispanic student, you know, I try to speak to students, and that's what makes me know. I have no idea what the race of the student was, but obviously it touched them in somehow, and that makes me say I will give myself two pats on the back.
You certainly may, and we're working hard on that very same issue, because we all lose out when kids aren't exposed to the wide variety of really great works that are out there by all kinds of people.
Exactly.
In all kinds of shapes, in all kinds of colors, and all kinds of gender identities.
Exactly.
I didn't bring all of your children with me. Are there any others that you would like to talk about that are not sitting there on that chair next to you?
Two things that are kind of interesting, moving from literature that into the stage and into movies. The Watsons Go to Birmingham is being done as a movie.
Cool.
I went to Atlanta this summer to watch some of the scenes being shot. They're being done with a lot of care, which is something you worry about when you discover that one of your books is being done as a movie, because there's so many things that can be changed. And the director, a guy named Kenny Leon, is just doing a fantastic job. I haven't seen the final product yet, but what I have seen has really kind of lifted my faith in what he's doing. And also, another one of my books, Mr. Chicky's Funny Money, which I wrote at the same time I wrote The Watsons Go to Birmingham, kind of as a pressure release, kind of light series, kind of light comedic book. That is being done as a musical. It'll be opening in New York in 2014, and the music was written by a guy named Lamont Dozier, who's from Holland Dozier, Holland, who wrote most of the Motown songs. He wrote one of my favorite songs ever called Bernadette. It's got lines in it like, they pretend to be my friend when all the time, sweet Bernadette, they long to persuade you from my side. You know, things like that. This guy can write.
They long to sway you from my side.
So I'm very happy about that. I can't wait to see what's done with that too.
And I heard you say at your breakfast, or at your speech this afternoon, that you will have a book coming out next fall.
Next fall, probably. It's called The Madman of Piney Woods.
The Madman of Piney Woods?
Madman of Piney Woods takes place in Buxton, Ontario. It's told in alternating chapters. One chapter is narrated by an Irish boy named Red, and the other chapter is narrated by an African-Canadian boy named Benji. And it kind of ties in what we were talking about earlier, how things were very much alike, even though we have differences. There are superficial differences. When it comes down to being human beings, we're very much alike. And in this story, these two boys discover that their stories are very similar, even though they're very different. And it all boils down to they're similar because they're human beings, and they're kids, and they're growing up, and they're learning. So they're in the same boat, actually.
Okay, for speaking with me this afternoon, you have been granted a wish. Anything that you want to change in the publishing world is now yours.
Oh, Ed, you know what I wish? I wish that was true. Because it would take us a long time to make my wish come true. There are a lot of things that need to be changed. But I do believe there are people who are working hard towards making change. And it's a difficult thing, and it's not something that the publishing world can change by itself. They need a lot of help. It's like with education. There are a lot of things. People need a lot of help. We need to work together. We need to try to get to a point where we understand that we have a lot in common and work at that goal.
Well, Christopher Paul Curtis, thank you so much for appearing on www.spicyreads.org. I've been looking forward to this for years.
My pleasure, Ed. Thank you very much.